Lining Whitehall, these farmers are shining a glaring light on their livelihood.
This is serious news that the mainstream media is not giving enough attention to. A major legal and political crisis is unfolding in Britain, one that could permanently reshape the British countryside, the food supply, and the financial future of thousands of rural families. The agricultural community has had enough. A powerful coalition of farmers and family business owners has filed a formal lawsuit directly against the Chancellor and HMRC. The High Court has officially accepted the case for judicial review, and the hearing is just weeks away. This is no longer just protests and tractors outside Westminster. This is a legal battle for the survival of British farming.
Farmers from across the country, from Yorkshire, from Somerset, working with the Met Police to bring about 500 tractors outside Downing Street.
At the center of this dispute is the government's decision to introduce a 20% inheritance tax on agricultural property valued over £1 million, announced in the October 2024 budget by Chancellor Rachel Reeves. Farmers argue this will devastate family-run operations that have been passed down through generations. On paper, £1 million sounds like a large threshold, but in reality, farmland prices mean that many modest, cash-poor family farms easily exceed that value. The legal challenge rests on a serious argument that the Chancellor failed her mandatory public law duties by announcing this policy without proper consultation with the agricultural sector. Legal experts, including Solicitor James Austin and tax specialist Marvin Rust, have publicly stated that restricting long-standing agricultural reliefs represents a major legislative shift that should not have been implemented without formal consultation. If the court agrees, the policy could be reversed entirely. If the judge rules in favor of the farmers, the Chancellor faces serious political consequences, either proven to have acted unlawfully or forced into a humiliating policy reversal. If the government wins, the political damage is already done.
Are you hoping that the images that we see here today of you guys leaving the farm, and I know that's a big deal when farmers have to leave work, it's a 365 job, are you hoping that has a real impact on those politicians?
The farming community will not forget this. But beyond the courtrooms and the politics, there is a very real human cost that deserves serious attention. Rural mental health charities are raising urgent alarms. The financial pressure of this incoming policy is pushing many farmers' people who have worked the same land their entire lives to a breaking point. Official records confirm that 47 people working in the farming and agricultural sector took their own lives in the last recorded year. That is nearly one death every single week. These are not statistics. These are real people, real families, and real communities being pushed to the edge. With the April deadline approaching, the concern is straightforward. When the first estates trigger the new tax, grieving families will face bills they simply cannot pay. Farming is notoriously cash poor. The land holds the value, not the bank account. Families may have no choice but to sell, flooding the market with agricultural land at reduced prices. There is a genuine risk that large investment-backed corporations could take advantage of that situation, consolidating smaller family farms into large industrial operations. That is not a conspiracy. It is a predictable market outcome that agricultural economists have already flagged as a serious concern.
Bringing up the livestock, milking our cows, collecting the eggs, getting the veg, fruit to feed the nation.
On the question of government spending priorities, critics of the policy have pointed to a real tension. The Treasury is spending significant public funds, running into billions on asylum accommodation, housing thousands of people in commercial hotels, while the asylum system processes claims. At the same time, it is introducing a tax that could bankrupt the very people who produce Britain's food. That contrast is difficult to ignore, and it is a legitimate question of political priorities, not scaremongering. If this policy proceeds unchallenged and the predictions of land consolidation prove accurate, rural Britain could look very different within a decade. Village economies depend on family farms. When farms disappear, local businesses, schools, and communities follow. That is not speculation. It is a pattern already seen in parts of Europe and North America, where industrial farming has replaced family agriculture. The High Court hearing is the critical moment. The farmers have taken every peaceful legal avenue available to them. The judge's ruling will determine whether this government is held accountable or whether the British countryside pays the price for a policy that was never properly thought through.